Minister Tolson is from the Church of Christ on Lowell Lane. Thank you. We'll open this meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for February 15, 2011. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Barras.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless
Support our troops.
Amen.
We'll go to item number 2, action approval of the agenda for the Board of County Commissioners meeting for February 15, 2011. Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are going to pull the 10 o'clock timed agenda item B as in boy. Strike number 3 and 4 this morning. Do we have any emergency items this morning?
None that I'm aware of.
And we can strike 7. Number 10, do we have any closed sessions for labor negotiations this morning? Hearing none, we can strike it.
Hold on 1 minute. Brian? Oh, excuse me. Mr. District Attorney? Do we have any closed sessions?
No.
Okay. We can pull
11A, B, C, D, E, and F. Number 12 through 19. 21, 22, and we're going to pull item 23A as in Adam, and number 24. Strike number 26 through 32. And I believe that's it.
Rick? Mr. Osborne?
Yes, I can hardly hear you.
Why are we pulling the Amargosa Valley audit findings?
I had a request from Pam Webster yesterday that our auditor did not get everything done completely on it, so she requested that I pull it this morning.
Okay.
Can somebody turn Commissioner Eastley up?
That's the first time anybody ever said that, Lorinda.
Oh, that's so wide open.
Be careful what you wish for.
You mean if I bring my remote control in here, my mute will work? No.
Okay, we'll go to number 5, announcements. I don't have any forms. Do we have any forms for announcements?
No.
Is there any in Tonopah?
No.
Okay, we'll go to item number 6, general public comment, 3-minute time limit per person. Action will not be taken on the matters considered during this period and specifically included on the agenda as an action item. John DeLee.
Joe DeLee, thank you.
I mean, Joe DeLee, excuse me.
Has he got the floor or me?
Joe DeLee.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. I had more I was going to say, but since your agenda changed, I'll just say a couple of words about some personal stuff. Having been on the board of advisory board in Amargosa for now over 4 years, and having all this come to light about bad accounting, it hits me pretty squarely for not having been paying more attention. And no matter what the outcome. I can assure you that it will never happen again, and I can also assure you that we have a board, whether they're there now or whether they're coming up, the two more that are coming are all fiscal hawks. And that's another assurance to you that this kind of stuff will not happen again. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a form.
Maybe he doesn't know that.
Did you fill out a form? I'm going to allow you to speak, but you fill out a form so I know who to call
Oh,
up
I'm
from now
sorry.
on.
I didn't know
And they're
that.
located right over there on the wall.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you have a few, 3 minutes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to discuss the sewer problem on Black Street.
Sir,
Bring up-
could you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
John E. Tate, T-A-T-E.
Thank you.
Is the microphone on there? Okay,
I think it is.
go ahead.
Okay, bring up some points that I don't know if anybody has looked at. Point number one is care and custody of the situation on Black Street. Has the county got care and custody, or has Utility Inc.? Point number two is what happens if we have some heavy rains, storms, and those holes fill up, and the possibility of damage to the sewer pipeline and or the pump stations. Would like the commissioners to take a look at this situation and also possibly the district attorney. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tom Waters.
Tom Waters.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tom Waters, last name W-A-T-E-R-S. I'd like to speak for myself as a member of the Pahrump Town Board. I can't speak for the other members. One of the things that people have talked to me about is the town that voted to take over the Calvetta Eye. And I think the newspapers and a lot of the publicity clarified it to say that was not the vote. The vote was to ask the county commissioners to work with the town of Pahrump so that we could have a community center replace, rebuild, repair, or something like that. That was the real issue of the vote, and that's why it went 5-0. Otherwise, it probably would have been 4-1. I just wanted that clarification. And for that reason, that's one of the reasons that we've asked for a joint meeting. And it's not really a joint meeting, it's more of a joint conversation to let the public know that the commissioners and the town board are working together. We've already started it. I see that path working, and I'd like it to continue. So the town board voted 5-0 to have a joint meeting conversation. It's been changed by the League of Women Voters to a joint conversation. It's not really a meeting, but we would all meet together so the public knows that we are working together on all the issues, not just one or two. And I think it's important, but one of the things that I've noticed that it's not on the agenda for the county commissioners. We voted on it in January, and we'd like to see it happen. Right now, the League of Women Voters have a date set of April 18th. I know the town manager and the county manager are working it, but I'd like to see something from the commissioners to say, we'd like to have that joint conversation to let everybody in all of the county know that the town of Pahrump and the county commissioners are working together. That's our goal. Again, I've seen it. I've talked to several commissioners, and I know that that's what you want. I've talked to the public. That's what the public wants. To show that we're working together. We can get all these things done, all these issues ironed out, just with a joint conversation. Not necessarily a meeting where we're going to have agenda items and issues, but a conversation to show we are working together. And I thank you, commissioners, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
May I address Rick?
Yes.
Is there an agenda item coming forward on that?
I was going to mention it under Section 8 today when that comes up. to let the board know that I have been approached by the town board and the League of Women Voters.
Is there a requirement for board action to do that, or just an announcement?
Just the announcement.
Well, it has to be agendized as a meeting, because the five of you will be together.
Okay,
But it's almost like you would do a workshop.
yeah.
So it's just something that, again, it has to be agended as a open meeting, even though you're not going to be taking any action there. It'll give you the freedom then to discuss whatever issues are on the agenda.
May I request then that you put that on the agenda?
Well, it would have been, but I wanted to make the announcement and then follow it up to get everybody's approval to go ahead and schedule that. But we have plenty of time, April 18th, and that's a Monday at 7 p.m.
Okay.
was the proposal.
Okay, 7 p.m. Got it.
Okay, we'll go to item number 8, action commissioners manager comments. This item listed limits to announcements, topics, issues proposed for future workshops or agendas. Commissioner Wickman.
Chairman Hollis, the only thing that I would update you on is that I have been in meetings with Esmeralda County, Mineral County, Eureka County, and Lander County concerning the road project that we're working on, the minor county road projects. They are all wanting to join that effort. They're wanting information from us to help them, and we've been sharing information to help them do this, procedures and the process that you follow to get it done. Other than that, I think everything is on my agency report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Boraski.
Yes, I've been meeting with Dr. Waters and another town board member on a regular basis to try to get an open dialogue going between the town and the county. And I would endorse having a joint workshop or meeting, whatever you want to call it, just to have open dialogue on that. And that's all I have.
Commissioner Shinovan.
Nothing this morning, thank you.
Commissioner Eastley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pam Webster and I traveled to Carson City yesterday, where we made a joint presentation to the Government Affairs Committee of the Legislature on the state of Nye County. It wasn't anything detailed, in real detail, just basically what the size of our budget was, what some of the issues are that we're facing, what some of the opportunities we have are, and I was surprised to hear Mark Waite from the Pahrump Valley Times call me afterwards to say that he had actually seen the presentation on the video stream. So I have no doubt that he'll be putting an article in the paper this week. Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, we back up to me again for a moment. I had a little...
Thank you, Commissioner Eastley. Commissioner Boraski.
Yes, another note, I've been offered some more grant money towards Calvada I for the walking trails. And I'll be bringing, Cheryl and I will be bringing an agenda item forward in the future. There's been some offers of donations to put a small section of that in, and I'd like to move forward with that and just make sure it's okay with the board. And that'll be on upcoming agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up a little bit more on the joint conversation, as Dr. Waters alluded to, and that's how it was explained to me in a conversation with Bill Kobarger and a lady from the League of Women Voters. Just to give you a little bit more information, what they are advocating, and I mean they, the League of Women Voters, what they're advocating for is to ask each of the town board members and the board of county commissioners to provide them with 2 subjects or topics that they think are important items for discussion, and they propose to construct a question around each of those topics that would promote the conversation at that meeting. And that's generally what they're advocating for. So and I'll put that all in an email to all of you at the close of today's meeting, but that's generally what it is. So they're looking for a couple of suggestions from each person that'll participate so that they have a topic on those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further? Okay, we'll go to item number 9, consent agenda items. These are items that staff recommended for approval. The board reserves the right to move any consent agenda item to the regular segment of the agenda should issues arise that need to be addressed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to pull agenda item 9N like Nancy, just for clarification, and it's based on an email that I received before I came to the meeting this morning from a representative of or a citizen of Pahrump.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items number 9B through M as in Mary, O through S.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wickman to approve consent items 9B through M, O through S, and second by Commissioner Boraski. Further discussion? Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That passes 5-0. Okay, we'll go to item 9N, action approval to enter into a professional service agreement with Garota Geoscience Incorporated to provide support for nuclear waste repository office in the area of hydrology, data, groundwater modeling, and development of evaporation. The amount is
Mr. Chairman?
$36,000. Yes.
I just want, is Darrell Lacey in the audience?
Yes, he is.
Yes, Commissioner, he's down here.
Okay, that's great. I'm not going to read the whole email. I'm just going to read one portion of it into the record. It's an email that I received from a citizen of Pahrump this morning, and I have no doubt that it received extremely wide distribution throughout your valley. The sentence is, or the paragraph is, for everyone to look at consent agenda item 9N, $36,000 for a groundwater model analysis. The Water Board, looking for taxpayer funding, is hidden under the umbrella of the Nuclear Waste Repository Office. Darrell, could you can you dispel that rumor for the record that this is not the Water Board?
This is Darrell Lacey, LACY. This is funded under the Nuclear Waste Repository Project Office Fund 284, and basically this is to pick up some of the hydrology work that we used to do with Tom Bucco. Since his passing, we've been looking for some hydrology consultants to work and support us in our work. We've been working for 15 years under the Nuclear Waste Office for water and groundwater work in the southern Nye County area, and this has nothing to do with the Water District and is paid for with grant funding from DOE.
And Darrell, if I understand correctly, or my understanding of the project is water source characterization in the area that's specifically downgraded from the Yucca Mountain project. There had been a lot of underground nuclear testing that took place there, and we're very interested in how the water flows and where it flows and how fast it's going to get to where it's going to get.
Well, one of the largest parts of the scope of work is the U.S. Geological Survey is working on something called the Southern Amargosa Embedded Flow Model, called the SAM model. It's a very complex groundwater model in the areas downstream of Yucca Mountain, and we need some. We're participating in that model with other federal agencies, and we'd like for Glorieta Geoscience and to assist us in our
interactions with the federal agencies on this.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Lacy. I'll make a motion to approve that item.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Eastley to approve, second by Commissioner Wickman. Further discussion? Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes 5-0. Let's go to item 11G. Action, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision to prioritize and submit projects to Resource Advisory Committee for the consideration under Title II of the Secured Rural Schools Program.
I'd be happy to answer any questions for you concerning this item.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to address Commissioner Wickman.
Yes,
please.
go right ahead.
Hey, Lorinda, what's your recommendation on the priorities?
Actually, Joni, they are still coming in. We have 17 projects that have already been submitted to the RAC. 7 of those will have an effect on Nye County, but 7 out of 17 means we're behind the 8 ball because we require these approval to apply for grants to come to the county board before we can go forward. As far as prioritizing, that's up to a group of 15. So I would suggest that these are just submitted on a blanket level. If the county wishes to offer a support letter for any particular project, that would be welcome by the entire board for the RAC.
And I understand on any of these projects that the NEPA work has to be completed or we have to get a CADX for the project. Where's the funding going to come from for the NEPA? And will those projects that you think qualify for a categorical exclusion take priority over any of the ones that require a NEPA?
The one that will take priority is the one that does not require NEPA, CADX, or EA of any kind. The ones that are shovel-ready, ready to go. If there are some that are in late stages of having that already done, they'll be in second priority. If there's a project being submitted that requires a full NEPA process, it won't be considered because there's not enough time.
Well, I don't know where the money would come from either, and
Right.
there's not enough time. The agenda item is structured in such a manner that we have to deliberate towards a decision to prioritize. So I assumed that meant this morning that we had to select between one of the 2 projects that were in the backup.
And Joni, that is completely fine with me. If you would like to put your endorsement on one over the other, I don't have a problem with that at all.
The only reason I don't want to do that is because if you say that there are projects that are still coming in,
Yes.
I don't want to prioritize anything until we see the total project.
Yes, and these are being submitted by anyone and everyone. Like I said, I already have 17 projects that are that we're reviewing now, and only 7 of those have anything to do with Nye County. Nye County, our staff and contractors have not submitted anything directly to us yet because they have to have the approval of the board to do that. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball already simply because of what the Board of Commissioners has required of our staff and contractors.
Commissioner Wickman, this is Pam.
Yes, ma'am.
You can submit several that are priority 1.
Yes, you can.
I believe. You don't have to say that one of these is a priority 1 and one is a priority 2.
Exactly.
They can both be priority 1s because they are shovel-ready.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Oh, well, then that's my motion.
Okay, we have Mr. Fanning and Eileen Christensen are both sitting here. I think maybe they'd like to say something.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Eileen Christensen, Christensen, with Beck Environmental. We help prepare the preliminary briefing, and again, it was mainly because we needed to have direction from the board before we could pursue a grant application. Mr. Gary Reese in the audience, I believe, has already developed a fairly detailed proposal for the pinyon juniper pine remediation and sage-grouse habitat. We probably would want to extend that a little bit to include some other aspects of this particular project. I just wanted to bring that up, that he has done quite a bit of work already in support of that particular project. The second project that's listed, the road maintenance, we can break into several different applications to make them more palatable to the committee, and we can prioritize them in conjunction with the roads department. But again, before we could do that, we would need approval to move forward with that aspect of this project.
Dave Fanning, Nye County Public Works. The thing that I want to add to this is I have spoken with Sandy Stanio in NDOT and actually trying to prioritize and actually submit application as well. And so we're kind of handicapped, and very much is how you've been speaking about this. And bringing it back to the board, our threshold in time is actually getting cut shorter and shorter. And it's just putting pressure on us. And right now, I've had a really tough time trying to catch up with NDOT so we can get on the same page. I do appreciate the information, the mapping, showing where these roads lie within Nye County and actually if they qualify. So there's another area there that I'm making sure that we as Nye County do not miss out on through the state and that state process. So I just want to share that with the board as well. The deadline, the actual deadline is March the 17th. However, it has to go back through the actual board that's, you know, the 15 people of that board. So
March
trying
2nd.
to get this thing going and trying to get it submitted by the end of February. And I will get with Eileen as well.
Yeah. And before she disappeared, I think Commissioner Eastley made a motion, Chairman.
I did. I was just grabbing a stapler. And it was my motion to forward both of these projects and list them as priority ones, or identify them as priority ones.
Who seconded?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Eastley to categorize both projects as Category 1, second by Commissioner Wickman. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Wickman?
Yes, ma'am.
Will we be seeing the other projects that are proposed for Nye County?
Anyone who is interested and wants to look at the website, they are all listed on the website.
They are, okay.
Yes.
Can you send me the link?
I have 5
And Mr. Fanning is saying he has 5?
that I'm going to submit.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Send me that link?
I will.
Okay, thanks.
Is that something I can send to all the commissioners? Is that considered, okay. I'll send all
I
of
think
you
you
the
should,
link.
yeah.
Further discussion? Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll go to 11H, action, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision to approve a project for $50,000 to Kemper and Crowell, attorneys at law, to develop a strategy plan to acquire and expand and maintain water and sewer infrastructure in the Pahrump Regional Planning Area. Mark, would you please state your name for the record, spell your last name?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Mark Fiorentino with the law firm of Kemfer Kroll. My last name is spelled F as in Frank, I-O-R-E-N-T-I-N-O. You looking for me to make a brief presentation, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
First, I'd like to digress a second. This is the first time that I've had a pleasure of making a presentation to you in the new chambers. You should be very proud. This is a perfect, I think, blend of aesthetics and function. It's very nice. You should be very proud. Second, I thought I'd just take a minute and address maybe in advance the question of why would we do what's proposed on the agenda, and why would we do it now? Why is now a good time to do it? it's perfectly reasonable and responsible for all of you to question any use of public funds, especially in economic times that we are all facing. I will suggest to you, though, that when you're dealing with infrastructure funding, which is what is the heart of this agenda item, that is often one of the best investments that you can make as a steward of public funds. There is a potential for both great short-term benefits and some potential long-term benefits in any investment you make in public infrastructure. To highlight what I think a couple of the short-term benefits are, obviously infrastructure projects create good paying jobs, and that's probably one of the primary benefits if we can get some of this moving for you. Second, you have an opportunity, I think, to take advantage of a preference that we're seeing for infrastructure funding. Now, let me be clear about that. Every unit of government that we deal with, whether it's the federal government, the state government, or local governments like yours, are all cutting back. They're all having to do more with less. But frankly, where money is being spent in the next few years, there is a current preference for infrastructure funding. So again, another short-term benefit is for you to potentially take advantage of that movement. Long-term benefits include, frankly, the most important one probably is you taking control of issues that are critical to the health and safety of your citizens. We're talking specifically about water and sewer infrastructure. There are very few infrastructure projects that can have such a direct impact on the health and safety of the citizens. Other long-term benefits include, obviously, if you take control of these issues, you have a great opportunity to promote economic growth in the county. If you put together a plan for infrastructure that gives you the opportunity to do things that the current providers, because of the constraints that they have on them, either can't or won't, that's a good thing with the potential of generating, again, great long economic benefits, new businesses, new jobs, new revenue. In summary, it's probably a pretty good time to evaluate putting together a plan. To be clear, the action in front of you doesn't require you to actually take any further steps at all. You would be engaging us to present you with advice on the different options, the different constraints, and the different potential funding sources that might be available to you, and to advise you on the different structures that you might implement to take advantage of those. And then it'll be up to you what you do with that information, whether you implement it and how you implement it. So we are very grateful for the opportunity to work with you and for you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, either about the proposal or about our qualifications.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. I have two things. One is I'd like to add in the backup proposed scope of work a number 8, which would say cost-benefit analysis. I don't know what other wording you might need in there, but I think you understand, the attorneys understand what I'm talking about. A cost-benefit analysis at the end of this, what it would be. If that's what I'd like to add. The other thing I have is a question for our district attorney. Do you have any problems with this contract?
No, I've spoke with Mark, and I've gone over it, and there's no legal problems with it.
Okay, and I guess the only other thing I'd like to say is the reason I could support this is it's going to give us a long-term plan, something I think we lack here in the county on a lot of levels. I haven't seen a lot of long-term plans, and I'm in favor of looking out 20 years ahead, see what we can do. That's all I have.
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion including number 8, cost benefits analysis, to approve agenda item 11H.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. First, I wanted for the record to indicate that we accept the additional scope that you suggested, and then, was that what you were asking me? Yes, your attorney was asking me to confirm on the record that we were fine with that additional scope.
Okay, then that's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Dan to approve with the cost benefit of.
Analysis.
Analysis on what?
Number 8.
Number 8?
Yeah, it would be number 8.
I have a second by Commissioner Wickman. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a number of things I'd like to say about this agenda item. Excuse me.
Go right ahead.
At a meeting, a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on December 2nd of 2008, this board declined to take over a very small water system that was owned by a resident of Smoky Valley, Mr. Ron Berg, and at that time you stated that there were a lot of private water companies and the board could be opening a door to more issues and problems if we were to enter into a private agreement to acquire Mr. Berg's water company. And he had some, and still has some, very serious water quality problems there, and we declined to get involved with that. We had asked and actually approved funding at least a year ago for Mr. Dan MacArthur to provide a cash flow model for us for possible acquisition of Mr. Haven's Pahrump Utilities Company. We have not seen any results coming from that. Well, it was a cash flow model, but also, as Commissioner Shinhofen described it, a cost-benefit analysis. So we still have a cost-benefit analysis study that's out there for which we have not received any results, and why would we not use that as a benchmark for deciding whether or not we want to move forward with acquiring anything else before we enter into a contract with another individual. My third point is that we have a water district board, and if we are not going to involve the water district board with issues that are as serious as this one, then why have the board? Why not just sponsor an agenda item and disband them if we are not, as a board, going to involve the very decision-making group that we sought legislation for to put in place. Item number 5 in the proposed scope of work and fee says that part of the responsibility of Mr. Fiorentino will be to identify other financing mechanisms, including general, local, and special improvement districts. I think that the people of Pahrump, and let's make one thing perfectly clear, that this study is only going to be effective for the Pahrump Regional Planning District, and the people of Pahrump have already made it perfectly clear to not only the Board of County Commissioners, but the Nye County Water District Board, that they're not even willing to pay $8 a year for a parcel fee of $8 a year for water protection in their own valley. So what makes us think that they are going to embrace being part of a special, general, or local improvement district, which translates into they're going to pay anyway? And my final point is concerning the acquisition of any private water companies in Pahrump, which I'm assuming is where this is ending. What makes us think that if we take over any of those water companies, that the rates would go down and service would improve? All of the rate structures that are currently in place have been approved by the PUC. So I think that if we believe that we're going to move forward with a study like this, with a possible end result of acquiring one or more private water companies, one of which has already had its rates approved by the PUC, why we think that government can do it any better than the private sector can. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lacy.
This is Darrell Lacy,
So you're
LACY. As a staff member involved in some of these issues, I'd like to clarify a couple of questions that were brought forward by Commissioner Eastley. The purpose of this is to help staff and the commissioners in identifying and answering some of those questions that she currently brought up. one of the expected outcomes of this is some advice as to what is the appropriate structure for a governmental entity that might address the operation of private water systems in the southern part of the county. The GIDs, special improvement districts, other types of financing mechanisms, but I also think it was also to look at it as whether the county or water district were appropriate as well, or whether these other types of entities had better legal and financial opportunities than we could by operating this underneath a county or water district. But I hope that as part of this study we would include the water district as one of the options. I think that was the intent. The cost and benefit, one of the key assumptions that has to be made in any cost analysis, for instance the one that Mr. MacArthur might be operating on, is what is our cost of financing and what is the source of funds to help fund this acquisition. And until we identify what all these sources of funds are and what the cost of those funds would be, it's very difficult for us to put together a detailed model for the rate structure for these. So I think the long-term intent is that most of the systems are self-funded. That's what we try to operate with the current systems that are owned by the county today. And that's the assumption I'm moving forward with on these, is that we try to identify a structure such that any water system can help provide its own funding through rates. And as an additional piece of this, as we look at the shortcomings of the existing water systems in the valley, we have large areas of the Pahrump Valley that currently are not serviced by utilities, and in some cases they are within a service territory of one of the existing utilities. In some cases they are basically orphaned. You have to look at the history with the old preferred equities in the valley here, and unless the county or some other public entity gets involved in this process, it's going to be very difficult to find a way to provide infrastructure into some of these areas without looking into this. So I think that's why, as a staffer that's involved in this, I would like to recommend the approval of this so that we can get some assistance in these decision-making processes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Oops.
I'll recognize Commissioner Wickman.
Oh, okay. I saw that, when I read this, I saw this, Commissioner Eastley, as an opportunity to solve some of these issues that you did raise, but I want to ask a question. The answer to this question I'm considering withdrawing my second, because when I read this, I did not read it as a specifically Pahrump Valley. I thought this was going to be a study for the county.
No, the agenda item says infrastructure in the Pahrump Regional Planning Area.
Commissioner Wickman, if I could...
If I might add something
Yeah,
to that.
you're right, John.
Hold on
Mr.
just a
Chairman,
minute.
I think that...
Go ahead, Commissioner Eastley.
I'm just very curious as to why the county, if this is in the Pahrump Regional Planning District, why does the county feel that they need to get involved in this? I believe that the town of Pahrump has a perfectly competent government structure, and if the town board feels that or believes strongly that this is something that this is an area where there is a higher level of planning involved, maybe that's one of those issues that we can sit down together and talk about. We've heard nothing from the Pahrump Town Board on this. I believe that if this is something they wanted to move forward with for the PRPD, $50,000 isn't a lot of money, and I've looked at their accounts and they have more than adequate funding available to move forward with this. I would give them the opportunity.
Okay, one more thing. Is Dan MacArthur still here? Where's Dan? So we don't know if that, okay.
Okay.
On a number of fronts, Dan, I want to explain this to you. I was involved in the Berg water system, and I understand exactly what Joni's talking about, and if I'm not mistaken, she used a lot of my words and just threw them back at me. And I had forgotten about having Dan MacArthur do that cost analysis. I'm sorry, I'm over 50. I forget.
We're
The
on
ca-
that club.
Yeah, and she is absolutely correct. The water district, the water board needs to be involved in this, as well as the town board. I saw this as an opportunity, and I was fully prepared to go forward with it in this structure, but I would like to withdraw my second, simply because I would like to see a Nye County plan. I want to see exactly what Joni was talking about, and I'm sorry I was short-sighted on this.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner
Hold
Wickman.
hold on.
I'm sorry.
I got a motion, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that, but I would also like, if you deem it appropriate, since we've already changed the scope once, you could frankly, and not change what I thought our assignment was, you could strike the words Pahrump Valley region, because what I anticipated providing you was information and the tools that you could use to assess all of your water infrastructure, regardless of where it was geographically located, or regardless of what the question was before you, whether it was requiring a small water district or utility in the northern part of the county or the southern part of the county. The goal was to provide you assistance, because frankly, from my perspective, what I think you've been lacking is that you have these proposals and these ideas that come to you piecemeal, and they're not coordinated, and they're not measured against any specific structured legal or financial advice. And that was the goal, was to tell you these are the different financing mechanisms that are out there. These are the different structures that you might either create or utilize to take advantage of those opportunities, and then you would have something to measure decisions by, whether your decision is to build a specific piece of infrastructure from scratch or to acquire it from somebody who currently owns it. Mr. Lacey is right. We specifically committed that one of the things we would be advising you is which entity is the appropriate entity to utilize these different tools that might be available. So you understand why we didn't get more specific in our proposal, is because it could it could depend on precisely what you're talking about. There are different grants or funding sources that might be more appropriately utilized by the county or the town board, or that might be utilized by your water district. So rather than constrain what you asked us to do, we agreed to do everything, to provide you a model that you could measure any of those decisions by. And that's what our intent is. So we would be happy to strike those words if that's what you want us to do.
Okay, I only,
I have public,
hang on, just one second, please. I only have one other concern then. The only other concern I would have on seconding your motion, which you've already got a second, so it doesn't matter, but the fact that asking them for that cost analysis when we're already paying someone else to do that.
I didn't understand that to be the commissioner's request, by the way. I thought his request was, I'm going to present to you different options that you can utilize to these different infrastructure issues. And for each recommendation that we make to you, this is what I thought he asked us to do, was to tell us, what's it going to cost? If we have to go to this potential financial source, what does it cost us to go get it? And then what are the potential benefits if we get it, and what are the constraints of using it? We would be ill-prepared, and it is not within our scope to analyze the cost-benefit analysis of specific decisions, like acquiring specific infrastructure. That's not what we do. But we could tell you to pursue the different options we're putting before you. Everyone's going to have a cost, whether it's utilizing of your internal staff or utilizing other resources. That's what those costs would be, and here's what the benefits would be if you're successful. That's what I thought he was asking us to do.
Okay, and since our water district has not been given a mechanism by which to finance themselves, that is one reason, Joni, why I would be willing to do this, to get them some of the help that they need. So that's all I have to say. I'm sorry to try your patience,
okay,
Mr. Chairman.
I didn't realize they asked for any help in this regard.
Yeah.
I have a citizen input. Von Quillage. Mr. Von Quillage?
Good morning.
Am I pronounced that right?
Von Quillick.
Von Quillage.
Michael.
I'm sorry, Michael.
That's okay.
It's kind of hard reading this writing, but.
Well, it's the CH, it's a hard CH. Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Michael Von Quillick. I live at 1711 Chico Lane, along with my wife, Virginia. We reside in District 2. Relative to what we're hearing today, it seems to me that it's a solution looking for a problem. I have yet to see one study in this valley that the groundwater is polluted by anybody's septic tanks. I've yet to see that. However, Utilities Incorporated has absolutely polluted ad nauseum. The Calvada Pond by the golf course is a disaster. This is yet to be cleaned up. We live 2 blocks from Blag. That road is destroyed. And let's not forget that the valley has very, very unstable soils. That means the cost of infrastructure is going to be staggering. Witness what happened on Blag with one rainstorm. So I'm very dubious about having the county spend any of our tax dollars, $50,000 on a so-called grant when grants are drying up. And we also know that grants are going to have strings attached to them, which is going to saddle the taxpayers of Pahrump and Nye County, now that the attorney wants to broaden the scope, with an increase in tax bills. And let's take a look at the sewer infrastructure. Without exception, every sewer system ages. And as it ages, costs go up. And who gets to pay those costs? Right now, the Pahrump Valley residents, most of us have wells and septic tanks. And yet, our costs don't go up. If we hook up, and we're not a cookie cutter development like Las Vegas is for the most part, where you've got easy to plumb subdivisions, we're rural. And some of the costs would be staggering to some of us that own larger parcels who would have to be forced to hook up to a government-run or a private-run system. And then let's look at wastewater. This morning in the Las Vegas newspaper, I think it tells the whole story. Wastewater plant clogged. They spent $250 million, almost $240 million on a sewer plant with no place to dump the treated sewage. And where would we put all this treated effluent that comes out of this plant or multiple plants throughout this gigantic valley that we live in? Where would it all go? Are we going to put it into more Calvada eyes and have the pollution spread out around the county? I don't think that anybody would want to do that. So I think what we need to do is take a look at the facts of how difficult it's going to be in a rural community the size of Pahrump and the entire valley to plumb up a system, tear up the roads, and then have liability in some case something goes wrong. And what happens when the sewer system blocks up because the soils have failed? Then what do we have? We have a pollution disaster that the EPA would be licking their chops to sue the city, or excuse me, the town or the county, whoever was responsible for authorizing and maintaining this system. I think the liabilities would be staggering. And therefore, I think it's a complete waste of time and money to invest anything that this lawyer is proposing to get so-called grant money that's out there somewhere in outer space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Again, I'd like to go back to, this is going to be a strategic plan, and it's going to give us information that we do not have. And I'd like to call for the question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we have a 10-minute recess. There's an issue that I need to discuss with the district attorney.
The question's been called, but I'll grant a recess.
Thank you.
We'll
Brian,
be back in 10
can
minutes.
you call me on my cell phone, Brian?
Yes, Commissioner.
We're back at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Mr. Shenhoven has called for the question. Is there any further discussion by the board? Call for the
Mr.
question.
Chairman,
All in
I'm
favor?
sorry, do you still have a second? I recall Commissioner Wickman withdrawing her second.
Commissioner Boraski made the second.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So I have a motion and a second to approve. Dan, call for the
Thank you.
question. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Is that 4-1? We're going to, we're going to go to 20D, action, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision to, 1, terminate the memorandum of agreement between Nye County and Eden, and 2, approve shifting the remaining economic development-related responsibilities from Eden Incorporated to Nye County Manager and by submitting an application for local development grant program. Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're ready to move ahead with this. I have made contact with Mr. Parker, who you see here in the audience today. I've made all of the proper preliminary contacts. We're restructuring, as you are aware, with the attachments. And it's my understanding that Mr. Parker supports this restructuring of how we're going to provide economic development for Nye County. So with that, I'll just throw it back to you, and if you want to get any comments from Mr. Parker, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Do you have any comment, Mr. Parker?
Just one. Mr. Osborne is correct. We've had a number of discussions over the last couple of months regarding Eden, regarding economic development going forward. As the commissioners will recall, most of you were here about a year ago at this time when this item first appeared on a county agenda. And at that point in time, Bill Verbeck, Great Basin College director, who agreed to serve part-time pro bono as our executive director, and I came forward and asked you for a period of time so that we could see where Eden and the county could go together, which you graciously granted to us at that point in time. Actually, you gave us 3 months, and it's been closer to a year. I will say that during the past year, I believe we've gotten a lot closer to county administration, to county staff, with Beck Environmental. We've improved the communications process. We work jointly on economic development activities, and we faithfully attended the bi-weekly economic development update meetings. I also believe during that period of time we got a better appreciation on the respective roles, responsibilities, and goals that each of these organizations have. And we recognize we are in sort of serious straits right now from an economic development point of view, not only countywide, statewide, but nationally as well. Economic development requires all of our efforts. With constrained funds, with constrained budgets, we have to do more with less. And I do believe, having seen the scope of work that county has prepared to submit to the Nevada Commission on Economic Development is a good plan. I cannot speak for the entire Eden Board, but I can speak as president of the board, and I do support this. There is a role for RNDC, there is a role for Great Basin College, and there are roles for other organizations to support this as we go forward. So it is in that regard that I do support this plan. I would mention one other thing, and that is regarding the future direction of Eden. There will be an Eden board meeting next week at which Bill Verbeck and myself will both be at. And I think it will be there that we will look at perhaps refocusing Eden a bit away from economic development, more toward the passion that Bill shares, which is workforce development and a skilled workforce. I think you may see a name change. I think you may see the entire thrust of that organization change. The 501c3 will remain intact. And if we move it more towards workforce development, a skilled workforce, we will then again work with county and all other entities from an economic development point of view. Thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second. 1 and 2?
Yes.
Second. Yes, second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wickman to approve 1 and 2, second by Commissioner Shinhopin. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. And I apologize. I'm sure that after this meeting, you all are going to vote me off the island. But I have a question for Mr. Osborne. Mr. Osborne, tell me about this ombudsman position that you intend to create as a result of the, if this motion passes.
Well, one of the things that has been sorely missing, in my opinion, is someone to kind of hold the hand of the new companies that have a desire to locate here in the county so that they can maneuver through what many of them have come to believe is a maze of regs and hoops that they need to jump through in order to get projects to completion. We've talked about this for some time, and I believe that obligation can be fulfilled by assigning that to someone yet to be selected here in the county that's already on the payroll to help with that. Someone that is intimately familiar with the process and can help make the mountains seem more like molehills, to put it in that phrase.
Okay, thank you. So then I think we both agree that new development in, well, at least in the Pahrump Regional Planning District is really process-driven. I think we both agree on that.
Yes.
So then my question to you would be, why is it that we are not concentrating on fixing the process rather than throwing a person to hold someone's hand to get through the maze of that process?
Fair question.
Why wouldn't we?
A fair question. Actually, we are working on repairing the process, and some of those repairs have been made. There are still others to be made, but we are in fact doing that. But right now, I don't want to not have someone be able to help them through the process if we have a new company coming in. Well, like right now, we have one in Maverick, and we had a little bit of a wrinkle recently with them that we were able to work out, but I don't want to somehow turn a company away because we don't have all of the corrections made. But we are doing both.
Okay, so we've had a temporary community development director working with planning to streamline these functions for almost a year now, and obviously that's not working, so it's going to take another person to walk people through the process. I just wanted to make sure I had that straight in my mind.
Well, I don't agree with that assessment. It is working.
We haven't had Darrell Lacey, Mr. Lacey, on temporary assignment in the planning department for almost a year now, working on streamlining these processes, and it's still not finished. So we have to hire an ombudsman to act as an interface between developers and the counties before we can get a project off the ground. That's all I wondered. I have a question about the agenda item itself. The second part of this is that we are going to approve shifting the remaining economic development related responsibilities from Eden to the Nye County manager. But in the application for, well, it's the LDGP in the backup, it says that these tasks will be completed by you or your designated economic development representative. So which is it? Are you going to be, again, delegating these responsibilities to somebody else, as it says in the backup, or are you going to be handling this yourself, as it says in the agenda item?
I'm going to do both.
Okay, that's a fair answer. You're going to do both. And as far as the ombudsman goes, do you have somebody in mind already?
Well, I've talked with 3 people so far that have expressed an interest.
That have expressed an interest, or that you have approached and asked if they were interested?
Well, both. 2 of them were approached. 1 of them called me.
Okay, thank you. That's an honest answer, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Further discussion? Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'm opposed to this item only because I feel that what's going to happen here is that once again, we are going to pile more work on top of Mr. Darrell Lacey, that when we assume responsibility for this task from Eden, it will simply be delegated to Darrell Lacey, who is already on permanent assignment in NWRPO.
That's not going to happen, sir.
You said it might happen. You just told me, Rick, on the record, that you were going to do both. That
Delegate,
you were going
but
to be,
I did, Commissioner, I did not say I would delegate everything to Mr. Lacey. I said I would delegate. I didn't say who.
Somebody's
That's
phone's
okay.
ringing.
I'm not going to debate you on it, Mr. Osborne. My personal observation is that eventually this will get delegated to Darrell Lacey.
All right, and I'm saying that won't happen.
Okay. All right. We'll go to item, we'll go to our timed item 10:15, recess to the Nye County Road Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll open the meeting for the Nye County Board of Road Commissioners for February 15th. The first action item on here is not applicable. We don't have any meeting minutes, so I'll go to the general public comment. Are there any? Any up there, Commissioner Eastley?
No, there aren't, but thank you.
Okay. We'll go to action item number 3, which is the general road report by the Public Works Director. Hi, Dave.
Good morning, Commissioners. I really have nothing new to report, as we've already touched on the SRS funding that I was going to actually bring up in the road report. And
You could tell us the five that you're talking about, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't remember them all right off the top of my head, as they're actually being verified for the mileage. A couple of them are the Belmont Road, Ione Summit, Manhattan Road, and the other two escape my memory at this time, but those are actually the 3 of the 5.
And since we are limited by the funding to enhance the Forest Service, it's hard to, those are probably about the major 3 that would be.
Well, I think I've shared with Eileen a couple of other issues that I think maybe NDOT is actually pulling out of
Good.
something that crops up that you actually look into, and then you find out maybe a little bit more, but not positive. So
Yeah.
anyhow, it's work in progress. And that basically is it. Should you have any questions for myself or staff?
Doesn't appear that we do. Good job, by the way. I don't even have a correction on a name or a misspelling or nothing.
About time.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. I have a motion by...
No, you don't.
So you-
I have a motion to
I'm sorry.
adjourn and a second. Call for the vote.
That was good.
Aye. Aye.
And we'll turn it back over
Aye.
to the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you.
Now I can make a motion.
Yes, you can.
Oh, get so used doing this, you...
I know.
Okay, we're going to go to our 10:30 timed item, recess to the Nye County Licensing and Liquor Board. Commissioner Boraski.
Thank you. I'd like to open this meeting in Nye County Licensing and Liquor Board, February 15th, 2011. First item on the agenda, approval of minutes. We have none. Second item, general public comment, 3-minute time limit per person, requested to be limited to items not listed on the agenda. No action will be taken by the board. This is a mouthful. Wow. Is there any public comment in Tonopah? Hearing none.
No, there isn't, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any public comment in Pahrump? Going once, twice, 3 times. We'll close public comment. Nothing for brothel, gaming, liquor. Item 5A, discussion, deliberation, and direction to staff to set a show cause hearing for Luana Jean Hendricks, who holds up to 6 liquor license and gaming license, Nye County, Nevada.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it's the recommendation of staff to set a time, date, and location of March 15th at 10:30 a.m. during the regularly scheduled board of, it says road commission meeting, I'm sure they mean like liquor and licensing meeting in Tonopah, and that's my motion to set that show cause hearing.
I'll second that with a question. May I direct a question?
Go ahead.
Sure. By the time we have that show cause hearing, we're going to know whether or not this is still an alleged issue?
Well, yes, it was, the DA's office has that case file, and so the DA's office was the one who brought this to our attention in order to ask the board if they wanted to go forward with a show cause hearing and a date.
Okay. Is there any reason why we cannot stop a show cause hearing if we find that the results of this were simply alleged and not fact?
Well, I have a copy of the report. We understand is that she was arrested at the scene. This happened at Country Bar on Blag. On the 7th of December, around 8:50, we were called to a fight at the bar. Upon arrival, the deputies made contact with a woman who was struck a couple of times by Ms. Hendricks. Ms. Hendricks was under the influence of alcohol, and she was also in possession of a firearm.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking then is, has she entered a plea?
No, let me touch that. We did not receive a formal report for a criminal prosecution. The woman who was involved in the fight declined that there be any action taken. But because of the seriousness of the allegation of the incident, and I think that the point that I need to make is that I think it's very, very important to understand that the difference between the criminal system and what you do with your licensing. The outcome of the criminal system has zero to do with whether or not you can take action. If we do a show cause hearing, we would be obligated to present evidence to you as to the nature of the incident.
Okay.
And it's just one of those things that there was enough concern here with a bar owner who's potentially in a fight with a patron who's intoxicated that you should know about that.
Okay, I understand, and my second stands.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Or no?
I believe, I just want to be clear, if Commissioner Eastley stated her motion, March 15th in Tonopah, it should be in Pahrump, I believe, March 15th?
Oh, did I say
I heard
Tonopah?
Tonopah, I'm not sure if.
Yeah, I heard Tonopah.
You know, I read it right off the agenda item, and the recommendation says the Board of Road Commissioners meeting in Tonopah. I caught one and didn't catch the other.
You did
So
well there.
I'm 1 for 2.
Okay, so is the
Good
motion?
catch, thank you.
Okay, the motion is in, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to amend my motion that it will be in Tonopah. Or, I'm sorry, in Pahrump. I'm going to vote myself off the island.
No.
And just a point, Commissioner, we did file a request for criminal complaint with the DA's office.
Okay.
So, there you go. On the weapons charge.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion to have a show cause hearing on March 15th in Pahrump at the Commissioners' Chambers here. And a second, motion by Commissioner Eastley, a second by Commissioner Wickman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 6-0. And item 6.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wickman, a second by Commissioner Shinhoffen. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 6-0, and we are done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Chair.
Okay, we're back to the Board of County Commissioners. We'll go to our 10 o'clock item. A, action, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision to approve the audit for 2009-2010 for Nye County and all component units of the county conducted by Daniel MacArthur, LTD. State your name for the record and spell your last name, Mr. MacArthur.
Daniel MacArthur.
Whoops.
Is that better? There you go. Eat the mic. MacArthur. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. Let me see if I can't get this presentation hooked up here.
Dan, you know, for us commissioners, instead of giving us all this paper, if you put it on a disc, it's just as good.
That'd be just good for you?
Yeah.
What am I gonna do for scrap paper then?
Well, some of this don't even have blank on the back.
All right, never mind.
Mr. McCarter, I would like you to know that I have two identical, only different dates on my shelf, and I
Okay.
do refer to them,
I
so
have that one
thank
over
you.
there.
I'll give them to you both ways.
Thank you. I won't be able to read it today.
Oh, what it was, I'm sure.
Okay.
Well, I'm waiting to see if they can't get this feed up so we can get on the screen so I can walk you through the screen instead of through the book itself. So we've got technical
Oh,
difficulties here.
Well, what?
Well, I'll tell you
Mr.
what.
Osborne is taking care of it. Okay, we're gonna take 5 minutes till we get this done.
Our chairman and Commissioner Shenhofen have had to catch a flight back to DC, so you are stuck with me for the rest of this meeting. Mr. MacArthur is going to continue his presentation. Hopefully we'll get the video feed up soon, but he's going to continue without it.
Sorry about that. I did have a presentation to go through so we could use the computers instead, but let me go ahead and if you would all turn with me to page 1 in the audited financial statement. I'll give you a minute to get there.
May I give this a shot?
You bet.
Yeah, that's what I just saw that. Go down below.
We got to change the resolution. What page?
Dan, is that the page entitled Independent Auditor's Report?
Correct.
Thank you.
Let me just change mics while you're doing that. Usually it's just the control function right there and that does it. Okay?
But your
resolution's
setup
too high.
resolution is too high. We gotta back it down. That's why it's not showing.
We gotta go to the desktop.
Where's your?
That's why we usually use our
Okay. You want to go to displays, right? Okay, it's all yours. Do you want to go?
resolution, just resolution. Over here.
Should I just go ahead while they're working
Please
on
do,
that, see if they
yes.
can make it happen?
An
Okay, page 1,
11-year-old.
title,
Is there an
Independent
11-year-old
Auditors
in the
Report.
audience?
That's the library right there. I'd like to initially begin, sorry about this rocky start here, just to remind the board that I have a responsibility to audit the financial statements of the county, both for financial compliance as well as compliance to Nevada revised statutes as it relates to finance, also to review the audit the financial statements for compliance to government auditing standards. In the last sentence of the first paragraph, the last two sentences, I'd just like to read these to you just so it's clear that everybody understands this, that these financial statements are the responsibility of county's management. Right? My responsibility is to express opinions on the financial statements based on my audit. In the third paragraph of the opinion on this page,
You're on if you want to get it started.
I'm on.
Okay.
Okay, this feels like musical chairs to me today now, okay? Now, I want you to know the initial picture on there is not from my computer. This is one of my secretary's computers. So those of you laughing in the audience about the pictures on my computer, they're really not mine. Oh, come on. Let's try it again. Okay, now you can all see this. You can see the paragraph, the initial paragraph in the independent auditor's report. I'm going to go to the third paragraph and just read this to you, okay? My opinion concerning the financial statements of Nye County. It says, in my opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. The respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund and aggregate remaining fund information of Nye County, Nevada as of June 30th, 2010. So in a nutshell, what that means is I've issued a clean audit opinion on the financial statements of the county, okay? I'd then like to turn to page, and this actually sits inside the financial statement on page 7 for those who want to look in the financial. On this particular page, this sits in what's called the management discussion and analysis section of the financial statement. And I've highlighted a couple of items here I want to discuss. First of all, I want to explain the captions here. You see governmental activities, shows 2010, 2009, and you see business type activities, 2010, 2009. Basically, governmental activities are all of the various funds of the county. There's about, I'd say, 70 of them that are county funds. There's additional funds that obviously the county is responsible for the towns and libraries, but there's approximately 70 funds that are consolidated in these two columns here for the 2010 and 2009 year that are governmental funds. Those are supported by taxes, not necessarily user fees. The business type activity is accounting for the utilities over which the county has responsibility, as well as solid waste management. And those obviously are driven generally by user fees. I'd like to address my remarks initially to the governmental activities. I've highlighted a couple of items that I just want to point out, remembering that this is the consolidated information for all the funds of the county. Under general revenues, you see the caption there, ad valorem taxes. 2010, that number is $22,066,000. In 2009, $22,365,000. A slight drop there in the ad valorem taxes. As we project into the future, because of the decline in assessed valuation here in the Pahrump Valley and county-wide, I anticipate property taxes to have a continued drop. Under consolidated tax, you see the caption there of 2010, the number is $11 million. 2009, it's $12,108,000. So that's an overall decrease of $1.1 million. The direct impact of that is the reduction in sales tax being received through consolidated tax. Everyone understands the economic conditions we're facing right now, and I anticipate that number to continue to decline. Another number I'd like to highlight is investment income. For several years, the county has enjoyed a between 4 and 5% return on its investments. This year you can see, as you compare 2009 to 2010, you see a drop in the investment income there from $3.5 million to just over $1 million. That decline is a combination of two things. It's a combination of the decline in the market value of the investments as well as a decline in the interest. Interest income in some accounts is as low as less than 1%. On average, it appears the county during the year averaged on interest itself between 2 and 3% as a return on the investment. One other area I've highlighted there I'd like to point out is the federal land geothermal lease income. It's dropped from 2009 of $1 million to $613,000 in 2010. So overall, you see the drop in total revenues to the county from $72 million to $60.
Excuse me, Mr. MacArthur.
Yes.
We have to.
No, I'm not going.
Okay.
There was noise in the background that was bothering me.
Okay. Now you can continue. We're working with a very small quorum, just
Okay.
barely a quorum.
You can see that total revenues have declined from $72 million to $67 million. And if we follow on down to expenditures, Expenditures for 2009 were $66,982,000. In 2010, $66,164,000. So as you can see, a much obviously larger decline in revenues with a very small decline in expenditures. This next slide, this appears on page 10 inside the financial statement, and this is the assets and liabilities, again, of the combined funds of the county. Just like to point out, I've highlighted some of the significant items that I'd like to discuss with you today. You see the first line item, pool cash and investments. The most significant asset that the county has is cash and investments, $92 million there in total, as you can see. And the next most significant is capital assets net of depreciation, which represents land, buildings, equipment, as it says, net of depreciation at $84 million. A couple other items I'd like to point out that aren't discussed much during the budget process or in normal operations, and that is under the liability section. Again, this is on page 10. Under the liability section, you see I've highlighted accrued compensated absences, and if you note, it shows up twice on here. Once is the current portion, meaning it's going to be payable most likely in the next 12 months, and the other is the long-term portion, due in more than 1 year. It's going to be likely paid after the next 12 months. The combination of those two compensated absent balances is about $4.4 million. This is important, I feel, to point out. Right now, the county does have a fund set up called compensated absences with, I believe, if I remember right, about $200,000 to $300,000 sitting in the fund to help fund this liability. This is basically the sick, vacation, comp time accumulated by employees of the county. The other item I have highlighted there says OPEB obligation. This is a new liability that was reported in the prior year financial and shows up again this year and will continue to show up in the financial statement. The only place it does show up is on this particular page. It doesn't show up in any individual fund. This represents the accumulating liability of the insurance that the county at present time is in the policy to pay for those who retire from the county. An actuarial study was performed. The county hired an actuary to review the costs. This is a new reporting requirement, like I said, that began last year. I am concerned about this particular line item because this liability is increasing to the tune of about $4.3 million each year. That over time, I believe, could obviously have a detrimental impact on the county as far as its ability to finance that obligation. There is a requirement that the county every 2 years have an actuarial valuation to update these numbers. I believe a month or two ago a contract was signed with an actuary to have that update done again. It'll be important to see what the results are of that. I'm just going to put my cursor on this and see if you can see it. Down here at the bottom of the page where the cursor is down here, this is the fund equity / net assets, and it says under the unrestricted category here, you see that the county as a whole in the governmental funds area shows a negative unrestricted fund balance of $6,596,000. The reason that negative exists is because of the two liabilities I've just pointed out, this OPEB obligation and the obligation to pay for accumulated sick and vacation time. Now, these numbers don't appear in the funds when you prepare your budget documents, and sometimes these are out of sight, out of mind. But I wanted you to be aware of this growing liability.
Dan,
yes.
Excuse me. Is there any way you could sharpen the focus, or somebody could sharpen the focus on that a little bit? We're getting the pages, but they're really blurry.
1024 resolution is as high as the system will accept. So unfortunately, I can't.
That's okay. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, then in the process, I will also refer to pages in the financial statement as well so that we can go back.
That would be helpful.
I'll do that as well, okay? The next slide I have here, I want to refer back to cash, okay? Well, you know, I should, let me just go back here. Back on this slide, this is on page 10 of the financial statements. You see I highlighted cash there showing total cash between governmental activities and business type activities at $92,233,000. I didn't highlight this item, but 2 lines above capital assets, you see restricted cash of $2,527,370. That's money that sits inside the solid waste fund that's set aside for opening and closing landfills. Just so you're aware of that cash that exists, and then from there, let me go on to the next slide. The next slide, this is an excerpt out of page 49 of the financial statement. And this just shows a summary of cash. And the reason I put this here is that I'm asked the question many times about the county and fund balance, etc. And I want you to see that the total cash and investments that were under the control of the county treasurer as of June 30th, 2010 was $127,529,000. $92,233,000, and then just below that, the $2,527,000 reside under the control of the county. And then below that, there's 2 other items. There is a trust fund, which a fund with $25,000 in it. It's available to give scholarships for those who qualify to go to school. And then we have agency funds, and agency funds are the monies that are under the control of the county treasurer, but are in fact monies of the towns, libraries, and districts within the county. Just so you're aware of how that allocation takes place. I've taken the cash numbers and I've put these in graph form, and just so it's clear, you see that we have $127 million in cash, and I've broken that out because governments are required to prepare their budgets and their financial statements in the form of funds. Funds are basically a complete set of books, and so the county has several sets of books, each set of books keeping track of a specific revenue and a specific expenditure. A good example would be the road fund, where money comes in through gas tax and is used to maintain roads. On this particular graph, it's important in my mind to point this out. You see the largest part of this pie says special revenue funds, 57%. These are funds that money has been collected to be allocated for a specific purpose. Majority of this is driven by statute. Some of it is driven by county ordinance.
Mr. MacArthur?
Yes.
Is this in the book?
I'm sorry, this particular piece is not in the book. This is something for, not a part required as far as the financial is concerned. I'm sorry.
Can I, as long as we stop for 1 second, in the future when you do this, would you also highlight our book
Your copies?
and tab the pages, because you go like a scared rabbit, and sometimes I can't keep up with you.
Okay.
Okay.
No problem. I'll be happy to mark your books up.
Okay.
No problem. So 57% of the money is basically earmarked for special purposes. I'd like to go from there. The general fund, you see the general fund, which is the general operating fund of the county. That's where 4% of the total cash resides. And you can see that 26% of the cash resides in the agency fund, money held for others, towns, schools, and libraries. And then a small percent, 3% of the money, is in enterprise funds, which is basically the Manhattan utility, GABs, and then the solid waste fund. And then there is 10% of your money sits in capital projects funds. And I want to bring that up because capital projects funds can only be used for one purpose, and that is to purchase long-term assets, construct long-term assets. Once money gets into those funds, they cannot be pulled out and used for any other purpose. So I want to point out that of all the monies that we see sitting there, actually 4% is general money that the Commission has the ability to do anything they want with, based on ordinances the Commission has passed and Nevada revised statutes. Okay, now I'm moving on to the next page, and this is page 50 inside the financial statement. And the only purpose of this is to inform you in detail. I alluded to capital assets. These are the governmental capital assets. It shows you a breakdown on page 50 of what those capital assets are: land, construction in progress, building improvements. And it shows the governmental portion, and the bottom highlighted number of $2,575,357. That is the business type funds, which would be the utilities and the landfill. This next item appears on page 52 of the financial statements, and this is just a summary of all the long-term debt or debt that the county has. If you look at that page, this is note number 5 in the financial statement. You see governmental activities, capital lease obligation of ending balance of $2,234,846. Medium-term bond, $3,565,000, and then this OPEB obligation. You can see how I indicated that the addition for this year alone for that OPEB obligation was $4,274,000. And then the compensated absences, which is the sick and vacation time. So the total long-term liability of $18,878,000. Now, some of this debt was actually paid off after the end of the year. I believe it was in July or August. I believe it was the capital lease obligation was paid in full after the end of the year. Okay, now this next item, this is actually the general fund of the county where the bulk of all activity takes place. I've just highlighted some items here I wanted to discuss with you.
Dan, I'm sorry, can we back up to page 52 again?
60 is where he's going.
The business type activities?
You bet.
I thought we took a loan out of the landfill closure fund to fund our buyouts. Why would that not be reflected in the June 30th balance?
It is reflected in the June 30th balance. Let me take you to the page inside the financial. It's not part of one of my slide presentations, but let me just take you to, if you all would turn with me to let's go to page 32 of the financial statement. I'll wait to give you a chance to get there.
Okay.
We're there.
Okay, on page 32, you can see at the top, it says Business Type Activities Enterprise Fund. Column 1 shows Solid Waste Fund, and if you follow down under Restricted Assets, Cash, just below that it says Interfund Receivable, $3,253,037.
Okay.
That's where the loan is. That's the loan that's been made to, that you were alluded to. I believe that resolution was passed in May, I believe, of 2010.
Yeah, okay, so, all right, I get it. So it was 3253,037, and then after we borrowed the money, that's the 1.1 million ending fund balance for June 30th. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
You good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, then why don't from there, let's go back to page 60 of the financial statement. Page 60 is a summary of the general fund. I wanted to highlight this fund. In particular, I wanted to highlight the intergovernmental category. This is where the sales tax, consolidated tax, is recorded and collected. Just so you can see the budgeted shortfall there, you can see it was budgeted for the year at $14,075,000. Intergovernmental revenues were $13,231,000, so they came in $844,000 less than budgeted. You can also see the prior year number there under intergovernmental. It shows at $14,756,000. So there's a significant drop from 2009 to 2010. If you look at total revenues and you compare those 2009 to 2010, you see the drop there of about $900,000 in total, obviously with the bulk of that drop showing up in the intergovernmental category. Following on down in expenditures, you see total expenditures for the year at $36,739,000. Within the budget, there's a budget excess there of $470,342. But when compared to the prior year, you see that the expenses overall have increased about $400,000. As we follow that on down to the bottom of the page, you see the fund balance at the beginning of the year and end of the year. And one of the things I'd like to point out is the end of year fund balance is $327,522 at the bottom of the page there in the actual column. The county started the year at $2,671,000, and so you can see there's a significant decrease there in the available fund balance. The budgeted fund balance to end the year with was at $501,000, so you can see that the budget is pretty close to what actually took place, in my opinion, when you look at a $36 to $37 million budget, and ultimately your fund balance comes in with $175,000 projected. You're pretty close to what you anticipated. The concern here being, in my opinion, the falling revenues that we're going to see in the coming year and the impact on the fund balance of the county general fund. Now, inside the financial statement, and this actually shows up, and I'm taking you back and forth in here, but this actually shows up on page 8 of the financial. But there's just some factors here that I wanted to highlight that impact the general fund. And in the interest of time, I'm going to pass the revenue items because I've addressed it. I just want to look at the expenditure items, and it's the last item that I have highlighted. This actually shows, if you're in the financial statement, it shows on page 8, and it's just above the caption that says capital assets and debt administration. The paragraph here, just bear with me here, it says expenditures increased in the general fund by $421,000 or 1.16%. General government expenditures, and this is a function inside the general fund, decreased $357,000. So the general government portion of the general fund decreased by 2.86%. Public safety increased $275,000 or 1.68%. The basic reason for that increase was an increase in compensation, and just so I make the numbers clear here, I realize that it shows compensation increased $488,000, yet I'm telling you that expenditures in public safety only increased $275,000, and the reason for the difference is there was actually a decrease in capital outlay and service and supply expense to make up that difference. And then the judicial area increased by $473,000 or 7.16%, and that was due to an increase in compensation and an increase in the public defender and court-appointed defender fees for the year as compared to prior years. So those are the principal reasons why there was an increase in expenditures. Now this next item I have here is not in the financial. It's a graph I put together just for discussion purposes. And this shows a history of the county general fund back from 2002 to the present. Blue line at the top representing revenues, red line expenses, and the blue line obviously is the fund balance. And you can see how items have tracked there, and you can see that revenues were on a climb from 2002 until we hit 2007, dropped from 2007 to 2008, and then come up a bit in 2009, which I believe is related to federal land lease money. And then you can see it drop back down in 2010. The concern with this is that ending fund balance. You can see back in 2002 it was almost at zero. In 2003 it dropped below zero. There was a negative fund balance. And it's basically stayed above that line, and now we're dropping back down in 2010. So you can see the trends there, and it's a direct result of that revenue trend line you see up there at the top of the graph. As part of my audit, I'm required to look for compliance with law and regulation. There's 2 or 3 items I'd like to go through with you. These items actually are in your packet. They are attached to a letter that is titled Independent Auditor's Report. And this is a letter that is issued that is part of a requirement to meet Nevada revised statutes. And I have in Appendix C of that report, I have four comments as it relates to compliance with law and regulation. Some of these will be familiar to you. There's been some issues in last year. The first one relates to monthly statement of cash balances. There is a requirement for the county treasurer's report to be submitted to the county commissioners each month at the regular meeting. It's supposed to be done the month following the completion of a month. For instance, if the month of December is closed, then in January sometime this report is supposed to be submitted to the commissioners. Although the reports were not filed at all times timely, there has been an improvement in the timing of the reports being filed with the Commission. Nevertheless, the statutory requirement has not been met during the year where every report was not filed timely with the Commission. The next item I have, it says claims paid without audit. This is a finding in relation to audit work that was performed during my normal audit and ties to activity with Amargosa Town. Auditing the expenditures of Amargosa Town, we found that there were expenses that had been paid out of funds that the town had collected that had not been audited by the Comptroller's Office. The statute indicates that all items are to be audited and paid by the County Commission. In this particular instance, the County Commission has adopted the Comptroller ordinance. Therefore, these expenditures should have been audited by the Comptroller's Office. They were not, so this would be deemed a violation of Chapter 269 of the Nevada Revised Statute.
So Dan,
Yes.
I think it would certainly be fair to say that the county was complicit in the financial failures that took place in the town of Amargosa. I mean, not completely responsible, but we share some of the responsibility.
Yes, the county would share responsibility in that some controls failed in the process to make sure this was properly handled.
Okay, thank you.
The next item, deposit of money. Again, this ties back to my examination for the year and findings that I have as it related to work at the town of Amargosa. Basically, there is a statute that indicates that if bank accounts are opened, they're to be opened under the approval of the county commission. And it also indicates that any monies are deposited into those bank accounts are to be remitted to the county treasurer on a monthly basis. This statute I have highlighted here, and I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but basically there was a bank account opened at the town of Amargosa without county approval. Monies deposited into the account were not remitted to the county treasurer as required, and so this would be a violation of statute. The next item is Chapter 269 of, again, .095 of Nevada Revised Statutes. This specifically addresses unincorporated towns, which indicates that the collections made by persons either of the county or of the town are to be remitted to the county treasurer's office. This is in essence a little bit redundant with the prior finding, but it's a different statute mandating collections be turned over. There were certain collections that were not remitted by the town of Amargosa to the treasurer's office. Now, at this point, that covers the NRS issues that I came across as part of the audit. I would like to point out one thing right here. In the past, I've had several findings related to budget violations where funds have been overspent or where there has been an overexpenditure of a function in a fund. I'd like to note, because usually auditors are just here telling you all the bad stuff, I'd like to point out that there are no budget violations in this year's report. There isn't a place for me to say that in a written document, okay, but just so you're aware of that, and frankly it's been years since that has taken place, and so that's a very positive thing I'd like to note here today. There are no budget violations to report.
Good job.
Okay, this next item is found in a report that is titled Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control Over Financial Reporting. This is finding number 2 inside that report. I just want to touch on this. This is capital assets, and this is an issue that the county has been dealing with and fighting for several years, okay? When we were testing the capital assets for this year, we found that some significant asset additions had not been included on the capital asset listing. So I have some suggestions and recommendations in here to follow up on the procedure to ensure that all capital assets are properly accounted for and managed. This comment had been in the financial findings a couple of years ago. There was some steps put in place, seemed to work for a year, and then it seems to have become a problem again. So it's in the report here today, okay? I have discussed this with staff. Yes?
I'm sorry, I just want to direct a question to Pam Webster. Who's generally responsible for tracking those capital assets? Is it each department, or how does that work?
Accounting is responsible for the setup and recording of fixed assets each year.
Okay, but that will certainly be based on the department forwarding you the information, or actually taking...
No, it's detected through the through the expenses when bills are paid, and then reviewed and taken out of, I don't want to get into the accounting steps, but
yeah,
it's taken out of a certain criteria within the system and placed and set up as a fixed asset where depreciation is identified and the asset then moves forward through its useful life.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thank you. In addition, there is an additional letter, and all of these are basically letters that are required by statute and or accounting principles. Another letter titled Management Comments. And in this letter, there's a follow-up on prior year recommendations, and then if there are any current year recommendations. And what I've decided to do today with my comments and presentation is not to go through all the prior year comments and the present status, but I'd like to talk about some current issues that I've discussed with staff that are areas that could be addressed. The first one has to do with investment policy. As I indicated earlier in my presentation concerning investment income, there is an accounting requirement that's changed several years ago, and that is that, well, I'm going to get too much of an account here with you, but for years in the accounting industry, you would always record on your set of books the historical cost of something when you recorded on the books. If you bought a truck for $10,000, it went on your books for $10,000. If you bought a stock for $10,000, meaning like you buy IBM stock, it would stay on your books at $10,000. Well, now they've changed the accounting rules where they want that to be recorded at fair market value at the end of every year, and so or every accounting period.
Who's they? I'm sorry, Dan. Who's they? The legislature?
I'm sorry, that is the GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, as well as the AICPA. I'm sorry. Good question.
Okay.
In order for financial statements to be prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, the requirement is to record all investments at fair market value. You have a significant amount of investments, okay, at the end of each year. And what has been happening is that those values increase or decrease each year. This year we saw a significant decrease of those values. It's been the policy to record interest in each month for all the entities that receive interest, but the market value adjustment has only been made at the end of the year. What we find is that several departments may believe they have money in their fund from the interest they've earned. Then at the end of the year, we may walk in and wipe out half of that interest they earned because of a market value drop. So my suggestion here is to make the market value adjustments on a monthly basis so all entities know what the increase or decrease has been, so there's no surprise at June 30th each year. Okay? Not a big issue, but just an accounting issue so that those individuals who do receive that don't have any surprises at the end of the year. The next item I have relates to petty cash. Okay? This is an outgrowth of the audit work that ties to the town of Amargosa. There are many departments and entities throughout the county who have a petty cash fund where they're allowed so many dollars to pay cash for specific business expenses. On a monthly basis, they're supposed to send a report in showing the expenditures to get them reimbursed and show a report of how much cash they still have on hand. In our examination of the Amargosa Petty Cash Fund, we found that there were reimbursements in excess of their petty cash balance. And so we have suggested some comments here to tighten down the control over petty cash for all the petty cash funds throughout the county. I have discussed this with staff, and they'll be able to, in my mind, go and implement this. And the bottom line is that on a monthly basis, petty cash reports will be submitted to the comptroller's office, whether someone spent any money or not. And each month, the amount, if there is a reimbursement amount, will have to tie to the petty cash reconciliation report. In addition, the last item I put on here was to have someone periodically, on a surprise basis, go to the various departments' offices and do a surprise audit. Now, I do know there has been some audits done. I don't know if they were done on a surprise basis, but you may or may not want to do them that way, but I'm suggesting someone do that. The next item I have relates to accounting period cutoff. And I'm sorry, I feel like I'm getting real bean counter here with you now. As I was doing my audit work, I found that some transactions that belonged in 2011 had been recorded in 2011, then a check was void, but the check was void in 2010, which caused the 2010 books to be overstated, and maybe I could use the term out of balance, but overstated. And so it's very important that we follow up on the procedures to make sure that there's a proper cutoff between each accounting month and each accounting year. Room tax compliance. This relates to Amargosa Community Center Parks Fund. The room tax ordinance for that fund indicates that the money collected for room tax is to be spent for two purposes, parks and economic development. Right now, all the money goes into one fund, and what's been found is that there has been an over-expenditure of money for parks, more than what the ordinance actually allows, and I'm suggesting that in order to properly account for this, there should be two departments inside the fund, or a separate fund should be created to ensure that the parks activity is properly spent and that the room tax money collected for economic development is properly spent.
Dan?
Yes?
I want to jump in right there. So the town of Amargosa has three funds, 701, 702, 703. So what you're recommending is that we create a 704 and do that 40-60 split on the room tax revenues. Is that what you're saying?
That would be my suggestion. That would be the easiest way to take care of the problem and make accounting accurate and easy for everyone to see.
So that, but that doesn't require, well, you might not be familiar with the ordinance, but does that require amending the ordinance?
No, we've already issued a resolution, and the board has authorized the opening of that new fund.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item relates to written policy and procedure. To summarize, the county has adopted over the years.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I want to go back to that issue again. There's one other question I have. So if we split those funds out to that 40-60 split as it's called for in the ordinance, are we going to go back and reassign? We'll go right back to the beginning and reassign those fund balances, and wouldn't that would create a huge deficit in the Parks Fund, correct?
That is correct. The deficit would be in excess. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So don't we pay an employee out of the Parks Fund? So this probably isn't a discussion for this item, but I'm just concerned because now there's going to be a really
We're going to have to make that determination at the time of the budget.
So it's not a money, it's a paper issue. It's not a cash issue, or is it? Or is it a paper issue?
It's a cash issue as well.
It's on paper.
It's cash as well, yeah.
Okay.
It's cash as well.
I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Because the funds have been commingled, to use that term, even though the information is available, and I believe that ordinance went into effect 1990, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I'm sorry, not 1990. About 2000. It's been about 10 years, maybe 99. The information is available from 99 to the present to make that allocation, and so that allocation would have to take place, and one of the funds will end up with a deficit fund balance and a deficit cash problem that will have to be addressed through the budget process.
Well, that's not good, but okay, thank you very much.
Okay, the next item relates to written policy and procedure. The county has adopted over the years several different policies concerning its accounting and finance. And my recommendation here is simply to review current policy and procedure, update them, and place them all into a single accounting policy and procedure manual so that there's no misunderstanding between all the different departments that operate county-wide. It's just a suggestion to consolidate all these different procedures. And then the next comment, which I believe is the last comment I have, expenditure approval by departments. When we were testing expenditures, one of the things we do is we look for department approval on invoices to ensure that they agree that the invoice for goods or services, the goods have been received or the product has been received. And when we were testing those, we found that some invoices had stronger support than others. And so what we recommended here is that all invoices submitted to the Comptroller's Office for payment include a notation or a stamp indicating that it is proper for approval and is signed off by either the department head or someone authorized in the department to sign off for the expenditure. As I've discussed this with staff, I don't want anybody to think those procedures aren't in place now. It's just for some departments, I think the procedure could be improved to show a clear indication of the department head's approval for the expenditure that's being paid. The last item, and this isn't necessarily this is not an NRS violation. I just like to point this out to you. Inside the financial statements, there is one page in here that talks about funds that have a deficit fund balance. If you remember, in last year there were several funds that had deficit fund balance. This year there is one fund. It's the Law Library Fund. It's a small deficit of $2,210. Discussing this with staff, the intent to clear that deficit up will be done through reduction in expenditures in the year we're in right now. That it appears there'd be no need for funding to be changed for the Law Library Fund.
I guess I have to say I'm really shocked to see a deficit in that fund, only because I remember last year Judge Davis implementing a program that significantly reduced the Law Library Fund.
Yes, that's true, but there was still this small deficit that happened after we had already closed in the month 13.
Yeah,
so.
okay, thanks.
And I believe actually the deficit last year was higher than the deficit this year, so it has come down, and I believe by the end of the current year it would be in a positive situation. Those are the items that I wanted to go through with you today. Now, there is one other item that, from an administrative point of view, I would like to touch on that I'm going to move off of the slide presentation, and that is the Tonopah Library. Is it fine if I go to the Tonopah Library now, which is a component
Please
of
do.
the county? Tonopah Library District, do you have...
representatives here, yes.
Okay.
And in fact, I'm going to ask Irene if she wants to join us up at the table here. I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Should I just close this?
Oh, just come up and sit beside me. It'll make it easier for the camera.
I prepared an audit of the library district's financial statements and actually delivered those financial statements to the library district. For the board members here in Pahrump, I've made copies and provided copies of this library audit. Generally, the library audit is reviewed by the library board. It's my understanding that the library board for the Tonopah Library District is either down to 1 member or 0 members at this point in time. There's a need for this report to be reviewed by a governing body. Based on guidance from the Department of Taxation, the Department of Taxation said this report should come before the county commissioners because they would be next in line. And so just to take a few minutes on this, okay, and I'll make it brief, okay. I have issued a clean opinion on the financial statements of the library district. I'd just like to, I found no NRS violations as it relates to the library district. And if you just turn in the packet I gave you to look to page 35, we'll just go to 2 pages here, page 35 and 36 of the Tonopah Library District. I'll give you just a minute to turn to that page. The library district has 2 funds. It has a general operating fund and it has a capital projects fund. In this particular year, all expenditures were paid out of the general fund. There were no capital project fund expenditures. On page 35, it shows the assets and liabilities of the library district. At the bottom of the page, you can see the fund balance at the end of the year is $118,190. The end of last year was $134,153. So as of June 30th, the library was in good financial condition. If you turn to page 36, it shows the budgeted expenditures and budgeted revenues. One thing I feel a need to point out as we discuss this is on page 36, far right-hand column, it says 2009 actuals. Shows property tax revenue of $57,000. Grants and intergovernmental revenue of $4,001 and fines and forfeitures of $1,412. You follow on down and you see donations, $184,546. That was a one-time donation that the library district received. There was a benefactor who lived in Tonopah who passed away and left, I guess, a sizable portion of her estate to 2 library districts, one of them being that in Tonopah, the other one I believe in Kansas. That money, I believe, sat in an interest-bearing account. I believe it was for 10 years, and the interest earned off that account was given to the library district. Once the 10 years had expired and the agreement in this woman's estate had run the time, the principal portion of that donation was then gifted and made available to the library district. So the money was transferred to the library district. If you follow on down on page 36, you see fund balance beginning of the year. The fund balance for the beginning of 2009 was a negative $31,019. So at that point in time, this library district was upside down until this gift came in from the benefactor, okay? So we end up with a positive fund balance at the end of 2009 of $134,000. We roll into 2010, and we end up with an ending fund balance of $118,000. One of the issues to watch as we go forward with the library district is that you see the expenditures. The budget expenditures are $94,000, actual $88,904. The prior year actual expenses were $86,785. Well, if you go back and look at the revenue portion of this, each year the library district is spending $12 to $15 to $16,000 more every year than it's bringing in. And so without an additional revenue source, with expenditures remaining as they are, the library will slowly work back down to a negative fund balance as it had to begin the 2009 year. So that's not a today problem. That's a problem as you work into the future will become a problem, just so you're all aware of that. And outside of that one issue, it's a clean financial statement for the Tonopah Library District. And that's really all I believe I need to address with that. I can answer any questions. I know the library director's in Tonopah.
And Dan, we are, just for the information, for the public's information and the board's information, we are working with the Department of Taxation on a plan for the town of Tonopah to take over control of that library district.
So then that would bring it under that'd probably reduce expenditures then, because it'd be shared with the town then, most likely.
Yes. And Irene, why don't you go ahead and state your name for the record, spell your last name.
My name is Irene Carlisle, Carlyle. I was a board member for the library district for about a year and a half. I simply want to add that beginning this fiscal year, in the current fiscal year, the library's budget is within our projected revenues. The remaining amounts in that trust fund have been moved to a separate fund, so that we don't anticipate the library will be living outside of its means. We did this because hours were cut. They still meet state standards. There was a change in personnel. We have a part-time director, part-time staff, and that reduced expenses also. So the library is anticipated to live within its revenues in the future.
Excellent. So then the corrective action in essence has been taken then to reduce the budget to live within the revenues collected then?
It was taken when we adopted the budget for the current fiscal year.
Okay.
Dan, this is Pam. Just for the record, were there any restrictions put on the donation when it was granted?
No, when the donation was granted, it could be used for any purpose the library so chose. It was only restricted during the 10-year period when interest was the only thing that could be spent. But once the 10-year period elapsed, all the money is available for any type of expenditure.
So Irene, did you all move it into a restricted status?
I'm not sure that I could call it restricted accounts. What I did was simply take the money and move it into a separate fund.
Oh,
and I
okay.
understood that this would help because the board would actually have to act.
Oh, because it's not in the general fund pot.
Right,
Okay,
it's
got
in a
you.
whole different fund.
Okay.
And then we took the capital. It doesn't, that change doesn't show, of course, in this audit because it happened after the fiscal year.
Okay.
But it's in a separate fund entirely.
Good job, thank you.
Any other questions for Dan?
No.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
MacArthur.
you.
I really appreciate it. This was painless. I remember last year. Last year hurt a little bit worse. We're going to move on to item 20B, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision on a request to appoint Maureen Boudall to the position of Nye County Public Health Officer and approval of a contract in the amount of $1,000 per month for her services, which is budgeted from Fund 260, County Health Clinics. I have a motion for Commissioner Eastley and a second from Commissioner Boraski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes 3-0. Yes. Do we? Is it? We're going to return to the 10 a.m. item A. This is an action item. Discussion, deliberation, and possible decision to approve the audits of the 2009-2010 for Nye County and all component units of Nye County conducted by Daniel MacArthur, LTC.
Motion to approve.
LCD.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Eastley, a second from Commissioner Boraski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Commissioner Wickman, could we go to item 33A, public petitioner item? This woman has been waiting very patiently since 10 a.m.
You bet. We are going now to 33A. Action, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision to direct the Nye County Treasurers to sell at auction the property particularly described as Block 10, Lot 28, that is the east half, question mark, of Lot 27, APN number 008-21308, after giving notice of sale for a total amount not less than the amount of $2,050, being the amount of taxes, costs, penalties, and interest legally chargeable against the property as stated in the order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Eastley, a second from Commissioner Boraski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Were there any comments on that one, Joni?
No.
No.
No, the public petitioner was here, and I think the information in the backup was more than adequate for us to move this forward.
Okay.
Thanks, Christy.
We'll go back to item 20, well, we're going to act to 20C. This is discussion, deliberation, and possible decision to approve a change order number 2 to the contract between Nye County and Beck Environmental, Inc. to provide professional services in support of renewable energy, energy efficiency, and sustainability projects in Nye County, to increase the amount by $100,000 and also to extend the activities through August 15, 2011, and is budgeted in Fund 263 Renewable Energy.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Boraski and a second from Commissioner Eastley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 3-0. Move on to item 20E, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision concerning a request to set a date, time, and location for a public hearing regarding the Southern Nevada Water Authority's applications to use water in a county other than that in which it is appropriated or currently diverted or used.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
The recommendation of staff is to set a public hearing for the March 15, 2011 meeting at 10 a.m. in the Commission Chambers in Pahrump.
Second.
And that's my motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Eastley, a second from Commissioner Boraski. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes 3-0. We'll move on to 25A. This is an action item, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision and direction to staff to 1, authorize the in-house advertising and filling of 1 dispatch position in the Pahrump Sheriff's Office, and 2, allow the Sheriff's Office to incorporate the in-house applicants into the current hiring list of the Sheriff's Office currently as established. This position became vacant January 28, 2010, due to the current employee failing to confirm probationary status. The position is budgeted out of 101.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
It's the recommendation of staff to advertise and fill this position, allowing in-house applicants to be added to the current hiring list for consideration, and that is my motion to approve in that regard.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Eastley and a second by Commissioner Boraski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Anybody against, I guess? Passes 3-0. Item 25B is an action item, discussion, deliberation, possible decision, and direction to staff to authorize the hiring of 1 deputy sheriff in the Pahrump Sheriff's Office. The position will become vacant March 15, 2011 due to the employee retiring. The position is budgeted in Fund 101 General.
The recommendation of staff is to fill this position from the current hiring list, and my motion is to approve based on staff's recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Eastley and a second from Commissioner Boraski. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? It passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're going to go on to item 33.
There was a typo in the one agenda item. The person was failed to confirm in 2011, not 2010, but I don't know if we need to get that on the record.
You need that, Sam?
The agenda item actually says September or January 28, 2010. It should be 2011.
Okay. Do you have it? Okay, we've got
Okay,
it. Thank you.
thank
Janelle.
you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll move on to item 33B as in boy. This is an action item, discussion, deliberation, and possible decision concerning a request to approve amendment number 1 to the GIS cooperative agreement between Nye County and the state of Nevada, acting by and through its Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for the purpose of exchanging and sharing of non-proprietary and non-sensitive raster and vector GIS data and parcel data sets, to change the party to the agreement from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to the Department of Air Quality Planning. My only question on this, and I don't have anyone here from Public Works, is I did have a question on this. Rick, I wanted to know if our GIS administrator had looked at this and had any comments on it.
My understanding is he is aware of it, and I didn't think he had any comments on it, but I'll double check that for you.
I am all for exchanging information and helping within each of these departments. I just wish I would have had some.
Yeah, I think
Some
Commissioner Shinhofen had some reservations about this, and Pam, I think you know what those are.
Yes, he was concerned that the agreement gave the recipient entity the ability to give away GIS data that Nye County sells for a fee, and wanted to change the agreement to reflect that the Bureau of Air Quality Planning, if they did have an opportunity to have this information requested from them, that they have to sell it for the same fee and give that fee back to Nye County.
I can understand that.
I think that's a legitimate concern.
It is, although this goes both ways. So is Nye County also going to charge the fees that NDEP would charge for information that they give out, or do they even? Do you know, Pam?
That's a great point.
I do not know if they sell their information for a fee or not.
Okay, is there
So
something?
we have an approved fee structure for our GIS information.
Is Brenda in the audience?
No, our audience has dwindled to just the faithful few.
Is this a time sensitive, Mr.
That's what I was going to
Chair?
ask. Is this time sensitive, Pam?
I'm not sure, but you might move to adopt the item with that change, if that change could be made.
Yeah, you know what I would rather
If
do?
not, we'll bring it back.
It seems like this is tied, from what I can see here, it's tied to our PM10 issue in Pahrump, because they want this data so that they can conduct an emission inventory for particulate matter sources.
So are you saying it is?
It must be a PM10.
Are you saying it is time sensitive?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it seems to be involved in the PM10 program down in Pahrump, from what I read in the backup. So I don't know if they're under some federal guidelines to provide documentation or the results of their analysis within a certain period or not.
Okay.
Could
Well,
we
that's
table
not
this
on.
briefly?
I'm sorry?
And someone get Dave Fanning on the phone and see if there is an issue with that change or the time sensitivity of the amendment.
You're doing that.
And then we could do 23A in the interim. Did we? have we
Okay,
done 23?
I'm going to move back to, I
sorry.
am going to move back to 23A. I think Lorena is trying to IM him.
23A was pulled.
That was
Sorry.
pulled.
We pulled it.
We did.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything left on the agenda, is there? Did I miss anything?
No. but
Yeah, your report and the county manager's report, if there were any comments on those. 11I and 20A.
Well, 11I is on there mostly just to provide that that information out there to the public, and if there's any questions on it, I'll entertain questions.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I was curious on Commissioner Shinhoff's comments about the contract. Did he indicate a specific provision that he was uncomfortable with, or just in general?
Only that if Nye County normally charged for those bits from
There was a provision
GIS.
in the agreement that said that the information received from GIS information could be given away on the recipient's end?
And actually, Pam, you know that information is available on the website. Are you aware of that? The GIS.
Well, some of it is provided for a fee, and some of it is not. And that was the concern. I wanted Dave Fanning to be able to address that because he's familiar with their fee structure.
Yeah, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when the fees come into play is when we actually physically make a map, a hard copy map, and hand it off to the member of the public. Isn't that when we charge for it?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That's my understanding as well. If anyone wants the GIS information, they can go to the websites, and they can see the latitude, the longitude, and that information on the website.
Well, I'm a little puzzled because the contract specifically says under paragraph 23 that each party shall keep confidential all information, whatever form, produced, prepared, observed, or received by that party to the extent that such information is confidential by law or otherwise required by this agreement.
You know, Brian, I think maybe we should move back to item 33B.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
We are back on item 33B. Please go ahead. And yes, I read that in there too.
So I'm just not positive what provision that is drawing the concern, because I'm looking at the agreement, I just don't see where
Then,
someone.
Madam Chair, based on the clarification from the district attorney, I'll make a motion to approve this item.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Eastley and a second from Commissioner Boraski. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes 3-0. And we are going to hear public comment on our second public comment opportunity of the day. Is there anyone here who would like to talk? Do you have anyone up there, Joni, that has public comment?
Not unless Pam has anything to say. There's nobody here.
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Wickman?
Yes.
This is Gus Sullivan in Beatty.
Hi.
I've been in and out due to court, and I was wondering, did all the consent items get passed?
Yes, they did,
And the
Gus.
And the reason why I'm asking is on item P, I have a representative here from the Beatty Library, and I think we might have missed that.
You missed the opportunity if you wanted to argue against it.
No, I'm sure it was all for it. I just wanted to make sure it got passed.
It did. Nice to hear your voice, Mr. Gus. I miss you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sounds like everything's going good there. All right, thank you.
Okay. I need to ask our county manager if he has any comments or anything he wants to add to.
Nothing unless you have a question on something.
Are there any questions for our county manager on his report?
I only have one, and Rick, it's, I think it's on your report. Yeah, it is. The last Beatty Town Advisory Board meeting I attended, the board made note for the record that they felt, or that they observed, that the Beatty Fire Hall project was not moving forward at all. So I thought I would mention that to you. You might want to find out what's going on there and maybe send them an email or whatever you think is appropriate.
All right, will do.
Okay, thank you.
Has anyone noticed if I've missed anything? I show that everything is covered.
Yeah. You didn't want to add anything to your report, Linda?
I did in the first set of announcements, and that was just my talks with Mineral, Esmeralda, no, I'm sorry, Mineral, Lander, Eureka counties. The only thing I will add to that is that all three of those counties are adopting resolutions to support my Senate Bill number 49, which is asking for the state validation process to be identified in the NRSs.
Yeah, Pam and I tried during our presentation to Government Affairs yesterday to just go over that BDR or that bill briefly, and they shut us down immediately. No, we're not letting anybody talk about their bills. So. We tried.
Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 35. Are there any additional announcements for today? I don't hear any. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. I have no
I
second.
seconded it.
Okay, I have a second.
I did. I seconded it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We are adjourned.